ready. I was setting this up because we're also doing a live Facebook Live video, so you'll be able to watch it later as well. Are you okay, Ivar? Awesome. If you need some water, feel free to ask me. I can use some top up. Thank you so much, all of you, for coming. We're very excited to be here in Dublin, and it's a beautiful city. We went for a nice walk in the park today and around the river, and it's very, very pretty. So today you're really here for a treat. My name is Veronica Appleford-Devinson, and I'm the EU Manager of Synergy Science. And my role really within the company is to look after you as practitioners or anyone else who's coming on board and provide the best care that we can. And the speaker you will be listening to today is the CEO and the founder of Synergy Science, the world leader of hydrogen, health and water technology. Paul has been featured on a number of radio shows and TV shows. The most well-known may be for you the Truth About Cancer series that's been viewed by over 20 million people worldwide. So he was in that documentary. But his passion is really to explain and to teach you and educate you, so then you can pass on that knowledge to others about how to prevent pathology and what the leading cause of disease is. So I would like you to welcome Paul Barattiero.
Thank you, thank you. I love it. We have a nice group. Everybody ready to learn and enjoy. So, just as a little thing, there we go. So welcome. I'm here from the United States, yay, and it's a gorgeous day. I'm from Orlando, Florida. This is the kind of weather we have. So somehow they got my memo and they got the weather here, so I'm very happy. I'll be here for 22 days, and we have lectures in England, Ireland, Scotland, all across all 3 countries, so it's always exciting to be here with you. My heritage, my last name is Italian, but my father was German and Italian, my mother's Scottish and English, and some French in there too, so I've kind of covered all of the areas, and so I'm kind of a mutt, as they say, just a mixture, which I think is the best. You get the good parts of all the world. But I'm happy to be here. I understand that some of you are nutritionists and some of you are doing other things, acupuncturists or wanting to be in different modalities as far as natural medicine. My career is 25 years now, starting out as a podorthist with ankle and foot conditions for those that had diabetes. And then moving, and basically my world was preventing amputations. So that we have, basically combating what's called decubitus ulcers. So we don't want ulceration, because then we have amputations, and death effectively is what we're preventing, is limb salvage. That's what we're interested in. So imagine many years ago, 15 years ago, when I started hearing about technologies that could help the pathology, instead of spreading pressure or trying to lower interface pressures with capillary closure and all these fun things that happen so that we can keep toes on people and legs and what have you. Imagine my excitement when I heard there may be an opportunity to change the blood glucose and to help the disease itself. And of course, I was far more passionate, as Veronica said, about preventing pathology than managing pathology once you've contracted pathology. So that's my world, is lecturing. I've been adjunct faculty members at universities and colleges and all this stuff. And so at the end of it all, it really came down to this gorgeous lady right there, who is the love of my life, 24 years of marriage, and our son Jackson, who is 15, not in that picture, but he is 15 today. And today's not his birthday, but so anyways, that's us. A couple of years ago we did a little family picture and what have you. But my sweetheart, Jacqueline, I always say, she's not French, but I say Jacqueline, right? We try to make fun with names, but her name is Jacqueline, and she has had issues most of our marriage. And for me, she had gynecological issues, thyroid issues, she had anemia, so all these fun things that happen. And during that certain time of the month when there's a cleansing period, right? I think we know what that is. She had particularly rough time. We used to lose her for a week, a month, literally in bed. She was anemic, she couldn't get up. If she did, she could faint and fall down at any minute. It was really hard on her cycle. She lost about 30 ounces of blood each time, and so it was just not a good process. And so you can imagine here, I was working with diabetic patients that, I understand that part of the body, obviously, but it wasn't my scope of practice. So I was always, what do I do to help her? Because, any good husband would want to serve his wife and help his wife. And so that was my whole perspective, is how can I help her and take the knowledge I've gained to help her. And so there were some dear friends of mine who had heard about, again, this was 15 plus years ago, had heard about a technology that was being used in Asia to help with conditions. And I said, okay, I'm skeptical, but it's for my wife. I will try anything, to do that. And so they said, okay, great. And so we did. And amazingly, we were able to see changes. We were able to see some things, and it woke me up, because I'm saying, wait a minute, water is amazing and water is therapeutic, but water doesn't change pathology, right? You're not going to change pathology. We're not going to change chemistry in the body with water. You're just not. As much, anyone tells you anything different, it's not happening. There are things in the water that can change you. And that's what I wanted to understand. What was the mechanism of healing? I wanted to understand. I couldn't deny that it happened, and with my own eyes I saw it, but I didn't believe it was pH. I didn't believe it was, structuring of all these things that people were talking about 15 years ago. That was topic. I didn't believe that. And I said, no, it can't be. There's got to be something else that's changing chemistry in the body, and programming, module signaling, modulation, and all kinds of things. So this is where my journey began, was my wife. And so I know that if I can help her, because she's extremely sensitive to many, many things that not everyone else is sensitive to, that we can help a lot of people that are also sensitive. That's who we serve, is it not? As practitioners, as medical professionals, whatever the situation is, we are there to serve those that are the most sensitive, typically. Those that are out in the world experiencing all of the damage that the world can do, they're doing fine, seemingly, right? They're walking around, they're living life. It's those that are sensitive, or those that have weaknesses, however you want to look at it, they're not. It's more difficult for them to cope. It's more difficult for them to have a productive life and to have joy and all these things. Pain-free living, right? So this is our purpose. So the talk today that I want you all to listen to and write notes and invest 100% of the intellect that you have been blessed with in your life to understand this topic, because it is the most important topic that we can understand. When we look at the body, when we look at conditions, when we look at disease or pathology or what have you, whatever you want to call it, right? Dysfunction, whatever the term is that you're comfortable with in your scope of practice or what have you. When we look at those things, we can get into rabbit holes, can't we? We can look at very segmented parts of the body, and we can lose ourselves almost in making things too complex. Have you ever found that medicine can do that sometimes? That you can get way too complex down into a rabbit hole, and you kind of miss this gaping hole over here that's like, what? And I don't want to do that. And I want to take us back a little bit to some of the most foundational things in the body, because the way that I practice medicine, the way that I think we should all, is by starting with the most foundational things first, and then see what the body fixes on its own. Then we can go into rabbit holes if we need to, or we can go deeper. But, we don't need to go into the rabbit holes first, because we're going to be chasing symptomology. You understand what I'm saying? Chasing symptomology. I am like the anti-Band-Aid guy. I hate medicine that Band-Aids. I like medicine that gets to the source problem and we fix that and allow the body to do it. By giving the body tools it needs, by giving it the systems that are in the body, supporting them to do what they were created to do. Because I believe we have far more healing capability than we give ourselves credit for. And we just need to help our body have what it needs. Because most of the time, as you know, the body prioritizes what it will work on first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And it's going to start with the most critical things first. And if it doesn't have those things, it kind of holds off on the other simple things. Which sometimes we don't do that in life. We go for the easy stuff first, don't we? But the body doesn't do that. The body goes to the most critical systems. And if we don't have the tools, it'll sit there and wait. So let's get into the leading cause of pathology and disease, which is what? And I'm going to ask you this multiple times because I want to make sure you know something when you leave the room. Otherwise, I failed you, right? So what is the leading cause of disease or pathology? Oxidative stress and then inflammation. Inflammation comes from oxidative stress, right? It's the body's response. So if this is the leading cause of pathology, what's the next logical thought?
Cure oxidative stress and there will be no pathology.
Amen. That's exactly. That is this entire talk. Okay? That's the answer. So you're getting the answer from the beginning. If we reduce oxidative stress to just have oxidation, then we are back into a normal range. We must have oxidation to live. We must have yin and yang. Everything has opposites, right? Everything is opposites. We have oxidation and we have reduction in the body. Both must exist in a balanced environment or we get sick one way or the other, okay? If either the pendulum swings too far on either side, we have problems. So oxidation, and if we don't keep oxidation in a normal range, it turns into oxidative stress and inflammation. Now, where is this oxidation typically? And we can keep it pretty basic. I don't want to get down into rabbit holes in the conversation here because it'll be 4 hours and then our car will be stuck in that parking place right there. That's what I understand. We'll be walking and it's not good. Or Uber, I'd have to do an Uber. But the reality is, basically, a lot of your oxidation comes from a few places. Today we're going to focus on the mitochondrial respiratory chain, okay? So when we process oxygen and turn it into fuel for the body in the mitochondria, right, we have a by-process. And that by-process is a number of things, but those things are called what? Oxygen radicals. So one thing that we're going to focus on today is talking about the most cytotoxic or the most cell-damaging radical in the body, okay? And how we can stop that process, and that's going to be important. So the beginning, though, of this process right here starts in the gut. That is where the first insult or the first problem occurs, is in the gut. And I'm going to submit to you and challenge you to prove me wrong, because you won't. Is that really where it all starts? Is gut damage? And the answer is yes. It is where it starts. And I spend my time when I'm dealing with patients that have anomalies, or when you deal with individuals that have crazy conditions that just don't make sense, or someone goes, look, I was perfectly healthy in my life and now I have this major issue going on and I just don't understand it. And I'm like, okay, when did it start? Yeah, what was the day? And I know you remember the day because your life obviously abruptly changed. When did that happen? Oh yeah, it was such and such day, right? They know. Okay, what happened right before that? That's what I want to ask, is that question. What happened right before that? And many times they will say, I was sick and had an antibiotic. Or I had some other thing, some other heavy metal, whatever it is that disrupted gut function. And that can be different for most people. But I will tell you the most common is antibiotics. right? That one's pretty chartable. You know that you take that and a few days later, the biome is different. Very, very significantly different. Now, the question is, if it's antibiotics, pesticides, I don't know if you guys have a lot of pesticides in your foods. I know we do.
Not quite as much as you, but enough.
Yeah, we have a lot. People get straws and drink them. It's just, they don't.
Yeah.
But typically, the children, they just did a study, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, and it was on national television. They took children, school-age children, and they had 8 to 10 pesticides in their urine at any given time.
Yeah.
So
That's gross.
yeah, well, it's gross, but it's very damaging. I don't know. Do you think it's damaging to have 8 to 10 pesticides in your urine?
Sure.
Yeah. Now, what are the purpose of those pesticides?
Kill things.
What specifically?
Microbes.
Right.
Yeah.
So if they're designed to kill microbes, so this is the amazing conversation, which is they're designed to kill microbes and bugs, but no, they're not going to touch you as a human. No, they know better. They know better. That's inappropriate and frowned upon in the pesticide world. They know not to do that. Don't mess with the guts of humans, just jack up the guts of bugs.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that's true? Do you think that's what really happens? It destroys the gut. So that's why I say antibiotics is a rapid process. Pesticides are a slower process and can weaken. So why is it that the gut damage, it isn't like in the intestinal tract of the body is romantic or beautiful, right? That's not of a part of the body that's something like, I'd like to know how your intestines are before we date, right? Is that what have you ever seen that on a questionnaire, on eHarm, whatever you guys use over here for, internet dating? How are your guts? Okay? Do you have flatulence after you eat? Do you, let's see some signs of how your guts are doing, right? No one ever thinks about that part of the body because it's kind of just, unless you're a colon hydrotherapist, then you might. But other than that, no one's thinking about the guts. So what is the big issue with destroying the gut? Why is that so significantly damaging to the health of a human being?
Because you start to get leaky gut and let things in that shouldn't go in to the bloodstream.
Okay, that's, sort of okay.
And oversimplification.
Well, leaky gut is marketing. It makes you think like you got stuff leaking down.
No, I know
But
it's not that. But
what's really happening?
the gaps in the intestine, is that not a fact?
Not really. Well, yes, it is for sure. But look, we don't even have to go there because that gets Let's talk about just the fact that we wiped the whole biome out.
Okay.
Okay. What did we really just wipe out? If we wiped out the
Good
gut,
microbes,
The
the
immune
stuff that
system.
should be there.
thank you.
Yeah, the immune system.
The immune system. So we just destroyed your immune system in 3 days. Because now the Z-Packs are 3 days. You don't even have to wait around for these antibiotics to work. It's 3 days and you're heaven. You're back to healthy and life is good, right? You don't even have to wait around for 5 days. It used to be 5, there was 7 before that, there was 10 before that. So we had 10, 7, 5. We don't have time for that mess. 3 days because I got to get back to work, right? We can't be messing around with 5 days of antibiotics.
Never had that.
3 days we need to wipe everything out. So the thing is, when we have gut damage, okay, we really have just destroyed the immune system. We need to understand that 70 to 80% of your immune system is housed in the gut.
They do teach us that. They don't really teach us the mechanism of it.
That's right. That's what I'm here to do.
Know that, right?
I'm here
Great.
for you all. I love you. We're here together as a group. We're going to walk through this. All right? So I'm all about guts, right? All right. So would it be good to destroy your military in any country? If we were to go and in 3 days we could wipe out 80% of your military, would that be a good thing?
No.
Yeah, if we need it. Yes.
It would be a good thing if we wanted to take over your country, yes. But if you wanted to still be whatever country you were that we were wiping out, you may want to have a little military action to prevent someone else from going, well, they're kind of wide open over there. I think it's beautiful. Let's go take that, right? And then they would because no one's going to stop them. What are they going to do? Throw sticks and rocks? No. Don't come in here. We will hit you. So the reality is, if we wipe out the gut, which is really the immune system, then we are left susceptible to anything that's invading.
Yeah.
That's the reality,
Yeah.
is that you're susceptible. That doesn't mean you're going to get cancer tomorrow, but you're susceptible. We know there's cancer cells in us at all times, right? You understand. You all understand that. There's no such thing as killing cancer. There's no such thing as destroying cancer. It's a part of you every day. It's the immune system that stops that. That's right. And apoptosis. So
Yeah.
those cycles in the body are what keeps cellular function from not proliferating the cancer cell. So gut damage is critical. And this is why I want to tell you that you don't talk about it enough. We don't think about it enough. We don't spend enough time asking the question, how is their gut functioning? Because if the gut is jacked up, everything else is. Okay? That's what we're going to learn today. So, if our immune system is messed up, the gut is messed up, I think I've driven that one home.
Can I ask this? That applies to chlorine as well, I imagine. Chlorine in the water.
Yeah? Chlorine can absolutely have damage, but nothing like an antibiotic or anything like that. Yeah, but it's definitely has a role in weakening the system, for sure, for sure. Now, coming back to oxidative stress and inflammation, how do they affect the body? Do we know how does oxidative stress help or affect the body in any way? Does it help?
No.
No. It harms the body, correct? So, how does it? Well, we'll see that on the next slide. But this is the things we're going to learn. How it affects the body. How does reactive oxygen species get in my cells in the first place? This is one of the questions, because when we talk about oxidative stress, people say, what is it? I don't even understand really what it is. And again, I gave you a little teaser, which was, these are oxygen radicals. So when you're converting things into fuel for the body, there's by-processes. Yeah. Those by-processes are handled beautifully by the body with our body's antioxidant system. The problem is, that has a lot to do with the gut and the immune. And if we disable those systems, then we no longer have the natural antioxidant abilities. I'm not talking antioxidants that you would buy in a store. Be careful with those. I'm talking about the natural antioxidant abilities to the body. And then what can I do to help my body reduce oxidative stress, right? Because going back to what we said, oxidative stress is the leading cause, then all we really need to do is figure out how to lower oxidative stress.
Yeah.
Now, is that oversimplifying or is that true?
That's true.
It's true, I think, yeah.
Thank you. It is. So, ding, 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 you win.
So you're saying free radicals are a natural part of the energy production system, which the body
They are a by-process.
of an energy production.
Yes.
But the body should, under optimum conditions, actually handle those.
Not even optimal. I would say normal.
Under normal conditions, should handle them.
Absolutely.
But something goes wrong because of
Right.
gut.
That's right. We've damaged the system. All right. So let's look at some of the conditions that oxidative stress brings about in the body, and see if any of these are some that you deal with people. Now, these are organized by system in the body, and while you're reading that, I'm going to walk around and get a water. Yeah, you can take a picture. Yeah. You can come up and
read it
get in
later
there and do a
properly,
selfie. I'm just kidding. Point to your condition. No, I'm just kidding. While you're up there.
One
do that.
probably.
Yeah. One for every area, though. Take your pick. All right, I'm getting out of the picture. There you go. Now that she's taken that picture, I'm going to be sending you guys all this slides, so I just don't have fun. But I'm going to be sending these around, and it's going to be on a page where it has each slide and some lines. But please write notes, because I know, I'm like your mom, I know if you're writing notes, and I won't send them to you. I have a couple aha questions. Have any of you ever thought of bipolar as an oxidative stress related? You have? What?
Well, I know it's now been proven that there's a lot of
Because that's pretty rare. Most people don't think.
Depression. Yeah.
Most people don't think of bipolar. Like, this is what they think about bipolar. Oh, you
I've
have
only
bipolar?
read it.
That's so nice. You taking your medicine? Yeah, you taking your medicine?
No, I don't.
That's all they care about, right? Like, if you know someone's bipolar, you asking them, have you taken your medication?
Oh, really? Right. Okay.
Well, because most people don't think you could do anything about it.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought,
It's the same as that.
we're going to help
Alzheimer's.
this person heal of bipolar?
Yeah.
I've never heard that. I've never heard anyone that's like, hey, I'm a bipolar specialist. Come over here. We'll get rid of it for you. No, you never hear that. You hear that they're on medication and like people are counting pills because it's important they're on medication because it's kind of crazy when they're not, right? But imagine for a minute if it was simply oxidative stress and you could relieve that situation with reducing oxidative stress. It's very interesting, the generation you can affect. When we start to look at heart, this will come later, so I want to show you. Look at all the heart things going on because that's going to play a role later in our conversation. That heart is highly affected by oxidative stress. Okay, blood pressure, strokes, other issues, little things like asthma, okay, allergies. Interesting, because on this chart we have simple things and we have very significant pathologies like cancer, diabetes, these kind of things. There's multiple cancers. You kind of notice that, right? There's cancer here, all around, you know, because it's different parts of the body. Okay? Everyone done with their selfies? All right, we're going to go for them. So, oxidative stress is considered leading cause. It's essentially an imbalance, as I already told you, and it's our body's inability to manage the stress, the oxidation with the antioxidant systems in the body. Okay, that's the problem, and it really comes down to the ability of the body to counteract or detoxify. And I would use the word complete because that's how the body functions with things. It completes things and turns them into other things. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily just always rid of these. Okay? So this is oxidative stress and inflammation. Let's go into hydrogen. Because what I'm going to teach you about today is molecular hydrogen and how hydrogen can fix all of these things we just talked about. Okay? So understand that I've been lecturing for many years on hydrogen, and it is always amazing because people are like, I had no idea. So let's talk about hydrogen. It's number 1 on the periodic table. Okay? That's because
It's really important.
no, it's tiny. Who said that? It's
not
tiny.
a weight, yeah.
Right. It's number 1 on that. So it's tiny. Is there a benefit to being tiny?
Yeah, you can go lots of places.
Thank you. You took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what I always say.
Sorry, what did you say?
It can go a lot of places. Yeah, it can get anywhere in the body. There's not a place in your body that hydrogen cannot get. Through membranes, through bone, it doesn't matter. If it can get through stainless steel and glass, it can get anywhere in your body, okay? It's tiny, 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 okay? So, it can reduce oxidative stress and inflammation. Obviously, that's what today's topic's about. So I wouldn't be talking about hydrogen if hydrogen couldn't reduce oxidative stress and inflammation, right? Because that's the entire purpose of the topic. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I want to tell you is it is a selective antioxidant. It only reacts with what? Cytotoxic ROS, or cytotoxic oxygen radicals. It does not combine with radicals that have a physiological role. Or in other words, beneficial radicals. Now, were you aware that there are beneficial free radicals in the body? I hope so, because more of them are beneficial than are harmful. The only ones we care about getting rid of are the cytotoxic, or the cell-damaging radicals, which are typically oxygen radicals. And the worst of them all is the hydroxyl radical. Okay? Now, a hydroxyl radical, as this shows right here, is just a hydrogen and an oxygen. So imagine the most cell-damaging free radical in the human body is simply a hydrogen and an oxygen combined. Isn't that interesting to think about?
Which is water less one hydrogen.
Correct. So, you took my thunder, man.
Yeah.
That's okay. We love you. So, here's the deal. But very, very astute. Good job. So, understand, HO is the most damaging radical. Is that not like make you think? Because we think of mercury, aluminum, heavy metals, all these things, but we're saying the most cytotoxic is hydrogen and oxygen. Very interesting to think about. So what would happen if we can put another hydrogen that's not bonded to anything else, and we put it into the body as gas?
You then have water, obviously.
There you go.
Yeah, isn't that supposed to happen naturally anyway? That the
How's that going to happen?
when no, I'll think of the
No, you're on a good path. I want to see
yeah.
what you can do.
But when you have CO2 and you've got
No, not CO2.
somebody's done more biomedicine than me. What is
No,
what
there's
is
no,
it?
there's no H in CO2.
No. I don't mean that. I mean as a natural process, we use. Oh, I've just forgotten it right now. I knew it for the
It's
last
okay.
exam and it's gone already.
It's, I know things. I remember those days. And you're like, dang it. What was that thing I knew yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hydrogen can help with that.
Okay.
We'll talk about that. Okay. Yes, we can do it naturally. I'll cover that and the rest, and you will be vindicated. I promise. So, but have some more water. So, it's a selective antioxidant, okay? Hydroxyl radical, most cytotoxic. And what happens is H2, which is what we're talking about, H2 neutral, you take one H2 molecule and you combine with two hydroxyls, hydroxyl radicals, and you create what? Two water molecules. So when we have H2 neutral and HO neutral, they will combine in the cells of the body and they can create this. Now, this is a very beautiful story. It's almost romantic, right? We're taking the worst radical, converting it to water, which is life-sustaining. It's amazing. Now, that is truth, and that is what happens, okay? But there's no way we can get enough H2 molecules into your body to combine with every hydroxyl radical produced, because you have millions upon millions upon millions of mitochondria. Do we not?
Yeah.
And so if they're producing hydroxyl radicals, there's no way. It would be like a never-ending war, right? We're constantly, how much hydrogen can I get? You wouldn't do anything else. You can sit home, hydrogen, I have hydrogen. Yeah. And so that's not what we need to do. But it is true that on a one-on-one relationship, hydrogen absolutely combines. But what we're going to learn about next is signal modulation. Now, you all know about that. You know about bioresonance. You know about homeopathic remedies. You know about energy and frequencies, I hope, right? We have a Reiki person in here. Where's the Reiki person? They're not running up to it? Someone doesn't want to say they're Reiki. It's a loving energy. I think it's okay. So, energy and frequencies can do things, can't they? Do our cells resonate at specific frequencies? Do cancer cells resonate at a different frequency? Yeah. I mean, there's a whole medicine on taking the frequency of a healthy cell and showering it on a cancer cell and watching it change, right? It's a whole other kind of medicine. But in this world, and for today, we actually, and now it's being proven, the study's coming out, that through catalase upregulation, molecular hydrogen, through signal modulation, or in other words, programming, it tells the mitochondria not to produce as many hydroxyl radicals. This is how hydrogen reduces oxidative stress in the body. It's through signal modulation. So if it's through signal modulation, and just by having hydrogen in the body, shouldn't it have been there all along? If that's what was needed to reduce oxidative stress?
But is it not there, but we wreck it by doing all the things we do?
Yes, exactly. What did we wreck?
Well, enough hydrogen, presumably.
No, but what was making hydrogen in the first place that we destroyed?
Bacteria.
What is it?
gut bacteria.
Yeah.
Correct.
Oh.
That's right. So you have a hydrogen generator right here.
Right.
That's why the gut is so important. That's why I talked about flatulence earlier, right? Now, you guys remember the movies where they might, light them. So, there are two very flammable gases that could come out of there. And what is that?
Methane,
Right.
That's right.
Nice.
Hydrogen, methane, both very flammable,
Yeah.
right? You have the Hindenburg, no. So, the reality here is this is critical. Because not only does hydrogen signal mitochondrial function not to produce hydroxyl radicals, but there's over 200 biomolecules in the body that are regulated up or down by hydrogen gas being in the body. So it's beautiful chemistry, beautiful medicine. And what we need to understand is that hydrogen is supposed to be in our body.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't create hydrogen. I know that's shocking to you. I didn't create hydrogen. It's been here for a while. Right? And it has a very critical role. In fact, when you break things down, it's all carbon-hydrogen chains, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
When you start looking at the building blocks of the body. We start looking at stomach acid, right? HCl, H, hydrogen. So hydrogen is a critical part of everything that we do. And this is why destroying the gut is so impactful to the body systemically. Is that very gas that we are supposed to be producing here by breaking down what? Fiber, short chain fatty acids, medium chain fatty acids, into hydrogen gas because we have the appropriate E. coli strains that do that. So when we destroy the gut, we take away all of those friendly microflora that do that.
But it's just as simple as saying it destroys hydrogen.
It destroys the bacteria that
Creates
creates
hydrogen.
hydrogen.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have tanks in there. There's not like little tanks.
No,
You
I
push a button.
understand that.
No, you're stopping a
Yeah.
process. The microbiome was destroyed, and so the bacteria, the friendly residential bacteria that were there, are no longer comfortable living there, right? They move on, and instead of anaerobic microflora, we have what? Aerobic. The fermentation doesn't happen the same way when we switch up the bacteria. So it's all about fermentation. It's all about digestion. It's all about that process, and if it's done correctly, we can produce how much hydrogen per day in the gut? What's the maximum, or what's the most amount that we could? Anybody know?
No, I don't.
2 liters.
How much?
2 liters, is it?
Oh, 12 liters. Something about water gas
Per day?
per day.
And what would you say, Paul, to the fact that, and by the way, I'm into this, that's why I came here.
Come
but
again?
I'm into this whole area, I kind
Yeah.
of believe in it, but just to do the
Yeah.
devil's advocate. You know, they measure,
We don't let the devil in.
they measure gut pathology with hydrogen breath testing.
Of course.
So they would conclude that off-gassing a lot of hydrogen by the mouth is a sign of pathology, SIBO, a problem.
Right. That's showing you a different test though. That's a totally, and that's a beautiful test, but a totally different test than what we're talking about.
But it's the
Those
same-
bacteria are looking, because they're looking for hydrogen as fuel. And doing a breath test is simply telling you how much hydrogen you're using or exhaling based on what you're going in. And typically what they're doing is feeding them specific carbs and things that will stimulate that hydrogen production.
No, for me, I pick an issue with that test actually. They've
Yeah.
got that wrong personally.
I agree.
I don't think
It
it
tells
is
us
a
nothing.
It's a measure of microbial strength, but not necessarily pathology in my opinion.
Correct.
Those hydrogen breath tests are standardly taught to people like us
That's correct.
as a sign of pathology, and I wonder if that's the case.
Right. It's really like, it's like doing a calcium test intercellularly and then saying, oh, you have too much calcium in your diet. It's like, no, it's because your body's harvesting calcium because your other systems are off. So very typically in medicine, we're looking at the symptomology, even through testing, never looking at what caused that. And so there's many tests that are like that. And I agree with you. I mean, how many cancer tests aren't telling you anything? But oh, there you go, cancer. We have those. So, anyways, this is a very important process here, where you're literally reducing the production of the radicals that are creating oxidative stress because you have hydrogen in the body, and that's what I want you to understand. Is yes, hydrogen reduces oxidative stress and inflammation. This is the process, how it happens. But we need hydrogen in the body for that to occur, right? So if you have a gut that is not functioning, then how do we get hydrogen in the body? And that's effectively what I did. If we didn't have gut dysfunction, if we didn't have issues with gut, I wouldn't need to do this. I would find something else to do. Trust me, there's plenty of stuff to do. I would find other things to do. Because I've had 7 corporations in the medical industry, because there's a lot of things we could do to help a lot of people, you know?
I mean, like, I'm sure this does work, but I can hardly imagine that would work, and then you can still just fill yourself with refined carbohydrate and loads of sugar, you know?
Actually, carbs produce a lot of hydrogen, but that's a different story. That is not a choice for nutrition that is appropriate. That's a different story.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is oxidative stress and inflammation. But when we start talking about carbs and sugar, we're talking about leptin sensitivity, and we're going to start talking about a whole other set of problems that are rampant, and we know that. And I can get into that. I like that topic too. That's a great topic.
Yeah.
You know, obviously we
Because
know,
you know that chart you put on before?
Uh-huh.
I mean, if you kind of look at, you know, blood sugar regulation, it's right at the core of all those dysfunctions as well.
But why is there blood? But why is
Because
the sugar in the blood there in the first place?
Because,
Correct.
Because
And because of leptin insensitivity.
Yeah.
Not because they're eating carbs, not because they're eating sugar, and I'm not saying that's good. I'm saying if leptin sensitivity was there, you couldn't eat as much sugar to accomplish that. But even carbs, we've been eating carbs on this planet for a long time. We've been eating gluten and dairy and carbs and sugar for a long time, and we have not had dysfunction in human beings.
Eat it now, not the refined stuff that we've been eating since the 60s.
That's not true. We've been eating refined sugar for a long time. But we have not had gut damage as rampant as we have. So the body was able to keep up. The problem is we started destroying gut function so that you would be susceptible and you would need all the other chemicals. Understand, you have chemical companies that start you and end you off. Because it's cradle to grave, because they want you accustomed. Okay? So I agree, the worst diet is carbs and sugar. I agree, we're on the same page. But that's not the problem. That's just identifying that when the gut is damaged, it can't keep up with that kind of a diet. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The body will be damaged quickly with that. Whereas with the gut intact, they have a far better chance. They have a far better chance, you know. So, all right. So let's talk about some studies. We're going to have some fun now, not just what a hydrogen is. Now, the thing I want to make sure you understand is the outcomes in these studies, as brilliant as they are, as we'd say in the UK, as amazing as they are, don't mean it's going to happen to you. It might, but it doesn't mean that you should assume it's going to happen to you, right? So this I start with the first study, Nature Medicine, very good periodical, 2007, 2008, teaching us what? Hydrogen acts as a therapeutic antioxidant by selectively reducing cytotoxic oxygen radicals. And here we see, where is it? Hydroxyl radical, there we go. Hydroxyl radical, the most cytotoxic of reactive oxygen species. All this study was showing is that it effectively protected cells against oxidative stress. H2 can be used as an effective antioxidant therapy, owing its ability to rapidly diffuse across membranes and reach cytotoxic oxygen radicals and what? Protect us against oxidative damage. Okay? So this is our foundational theory or foundational study done in 2007, 2008. And since this study was published, how many studies do we have? Anyone know? 700. Yeah. 700 studies have been done since this one, because this was such an amazing study showing that hydrogen could selectively reduce only cell-damaging radicals. It was incredible, okay? And since then, we're only talking 10 years, we have 700 studies showing the effects of what? Every organ in the human body and 170 human disease models. Did you hear about that on the news?
No, of course not.
No, you just heard about Russia and Trump and all these stupid things that make no sense, right? So, this is a good one. Here's the take home for it. All it's saying is what I already told you. So we're going to move on. Because you have other things to do, right? Here's a good study. I'm sure you didn't hear about this either. This was 2015. You could have heard about it. It's been published for years, talking about colon cancer.
Is most of it coming out of the East, yeah?
It's from all over. It
Yeah.
depends.
But did it start there originally? Who came up with the idea?
Japan is where it all
Japan.
started. Yeah.
Okay.
1965,
That far
they had
back.
finished 15 years of human trials. From Dr. Mishasua was the first. I'll tell you about that in just a minute. But Dr. Mishasua decided he wanted to see what this kind of water would do for rice cultivation. And so in the 1930s, he did that and saw, wow, we can grow rice better and it's higher quality. Okay, what's it going to do for other plants? And then what's it going to do for animals? And then by 1950, 20 years after he started the process with Synol liquid, that's what he called it, 1950 to 1965, he concluded the human trials. And the country of Japan made devices like this a medical device in the country. Hospitals began using it for cancer, diabetes treatment in 1965 because they proved that it cured digestive disorders and specifically improper fermentation in the gut. That's all documented from 1965.
Wow.
So the problem came is they believed at that time it was the pH of the water that was the mechanism of healing, which was ridiculous. But that's what they believed because it was 1965, not 2018. And the assumption was made that it was pH.
Okay.
Further, they made additional assumptions in 1980 that it was structuring somehow, that this process of electrolysis changes the structure of the number of water clusters, which is false information. And they used nuclear magnetic resonance to test this, and it just ended up, it was really reacting to pH, not structure size. But that was proven 10 years later in 1990 that it was no longer, that wasn't correct. That hypothesis wasn't correct. So again, it wasn't until 2007 that first study was done by Shige Ota, who I've met in Japan at the Hydrogen Medical Symposium, because there is such a thing, right? 200 of us there. And they proved that it was hydrogen gas in the machines that caused all those benefits to begin with. But they didn't know that in 1965. They made an assumption that it was pH, which was something I couldn't accept 15 years ago. I said, it's not possible because we could just put baking soda in water, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we could give it to people and they'd be having all these miracle effects.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's a great buffering of stomach acid, but
Yeah.
you're not going to change diabetes.
Mm.
So, long story short, I was really looking 15 years ago, and I had an employee of mine at the time who worked for me that had a PhD in water chemistry. Okay, so I had given him a pile of papers and said, read all this mess. I think it's a bunch of crap. Pardon my French. I think it's a bunch of nonsense. Read it and tell me if you think any of this is real. Because I don't think any of this pH stuff has anything to do with body chemistry. Because the body regulates the pH on its own, right?
Mm.
So he read it and he comes back. Here's a PhD in water chemistry, in water, and he comes back and he goes, Paul, no, you're right. None of the things that I'm reading about are even possible. It's opposite of what water does. And I've got a PhD in water, in chemistry, so I'm sorry. But he goes, there's this one study, and it's talking about dissolved hydrogen having a ROS scavenging capability. And the second he said that, I felt right through me, that is what you need to focus on. It is the hydrogen. And I was like, whoa. I don't know what's happening, but we just got mood lighting. So, this is good. You guys.
It's the hydrogen.
So last night we were teaching, and one of the lights kept doing this thing. I'm like, oh, we're supposed to dance. I think. I
That's
don't know.
happening actually.
Is
That's
it?
where-
Is that what we're supposed to? Okay. Good job. We're good. So we have smaller candles later. We'll bring around. Yeah. So here's the deal. That touched my life when Chris said, there's a DH in these studies. He goes, I'm looking at these studies that are showing real benefits, and buried on the 25th page is this DH on a chart And I'm like, DH? And he goes, yeah, it's dissolved hydrogen. And I'm like, really? That's interesting. And he goes, yeah, that's exactly what I think is the case. But do you want me to stop all the other projects and just focus on this? Or do you, no, I got this. I'll tell you, you keep doing all the projects I got you working on. I'm going to go with it because I immediately felt it. I felt the truth of the fact. That's where I needed to be focusing my attention was hydrogen, not pH, not all this other stuff. So that's what started my journey in a very real way, was understanding, wait a minute, this is hydrogen. Everyone's talking about the wrong thing. They're talking about oxygen in the water, and we're not fish. We don't have gills. We don't get oxygen. You can put as much oxygen as you want in water. It's not going to help you because you're not a fish. We breathe that stuff in, okay? And it goes in our lungs and comes back out. So I'm sitting there going, people are dumb, you know? They don't understand what's really, they're not thinking is what it is. They just accept something and that's it. But I don't like to do that. I like to figure out what's going, and it has to make a little bit of sense to me, because if it seems, you know, it doesn't make any sense. It might sound crazy and make sense, though. Have you ever seen those kind of situations? Well, this was one of those, and I'm like, wait a minute, hydrogen, oxygen, water. Okay, and it started making sense to me. So that was a little bit about my journey and how I got to the fact of understanding it was hydrogen, because nobody else was talking about that. They were talking about oxygen, microclustering, pH, all this stuff, and I'm going, I cannot deny that it's helping, because I had already been giving patients the water, and 80% of them were normalized in 3 to 5 days, and I'm going, what the heck's going on? I was frustrated because I didn't know what was going on, but I'm seeing them be helped, and so I'm like, everyone's saying it's alcohol. I don't agree with that, but here, drink this. This is going to help you, and it would, and I didn't even know the mechanism yet. So that day was a very special day for me, when I really felt strongly, through a source that I trust, and the only source I truly trust, that was where the mechanism of healing was. So this is good. So now today it's very easy to know this, but this was me 15 years ago going, what the heck? And then when I started lecturing, 11, 12 years ago on this, people were like, you're crazy. There's no hydrogen. It's all pH. What are you talking about? We're acid, and you got to be alkaline. I'm like, you do not have to be alkaline. There's no such thing in the body, right? Which part are you talking about? Which part of the body, right? There's this whole alkaline movement. Which part of the body are you talking about? So it was this whole thing for a few years until 2007, when the study came out, and everyone went, maybe Paul's not crazy. So we now have a ton of studies, and what I loved about this study is, and the reason I put a few of these studies in is because I want you to understand that hydrogen, which should be in the body, can accomplish things all over the board. This isn't a narrow window of treatment. This is something that affects the entire system, and we need to understand that it's mission critical. It's got to be in the body. So here we are, now we're 2015. That first study said, hey, it's a potential antioxidant. And at the end of it, hey, it is an antioxidant, and this could help you prevent oxidative stress. That was the language. Let's look at the progression. Here's 2015. Oxidative stress is involved in cancer development, first of all. And this was my talk, if you watched Truth About Cancer live event in Orlando just this last time. My whole lecture of 45 minutes was simply on this first sentence, that oxidative stress is involved in cancer development. I spent 45 minutes just drawing out the fact that cancer is a result of oxidative stress going unchecked in the body. Okay? So today we're condensing a lot of stuff in a shotgun approach, but number one, our foundational thought is that oxidative stress. Then we know hydrogen is a potent antioxidant. Now, all these years later, it's not saying it's potentially an antioxidant, it's saying it's a potent antioxidant and exhibits anti-inflammatory and potentially anti-cancer-like activity. So we know these things are true. This is the part we don't know yet, right? So this study is about that. We already have these knowns, and we're looking at this. So here we're showing hydrogen water administration improved the survival of mice. Furthermore, hydrogen water enhanced cell apoptosis. How critical is that? What is cell apoptosis? Does everyone know what cell apoptosis is? Okay, good. So I always like to say this dumb little joke. Imagine if people were apoptosis, and you'd be sitting around and all of a sudden somebody, you'd be like, oh, I don't know what they were thinking about. So imagine if that happened, it would be crazy. But that's not how it happens, thank goodness. It's just cells that do that. But the reality here is it enhanced cell apoptosis. So that means we've reprogrammed the mitochondria, right? Because the mitochondria, when cancer takes over, it says, no, I'm not going to destroy myself. I'm going to keep on going. I like myself. I'm special, right? So it's going to keep going. We want to flip that switch back and say, no, 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 destroy yourself. We might not have much of a presentation. Mike is getting dimmed. You see that? This is getting dimmed.
Can I just say one thing on it?
Yeah.
This is me nitpicking again, but for me, that's not maybe the greatest slide to present. It seems to me all the chemo agents out there that I've studied, I don't think I can think of an exception, work by being providers of oxidative. They kill, all the chemo agents kill cancer by turning up oxidative stress. And the general approach in standard oncology and even naturopathic oncology is to avoid antioxidants while it's on chemo, because the antioxidants will weaken the chemo. So this one is a very unusual story that an antioxidant is
So you just talked yourself out of what you said.
No, I'm saying this is a unique story, that the
That's
idea
correct.
that an antioxidant is a good idea while it's on chemo is a very strange.
No, but you need to understand that antioxidants are not all created equally.
No, for sure.
So you have vitamin C, which is going to do what it's going to do, regardless if you need it or not. And then once it cycles, what does it become? A pro-oxidant, right? So now your body's going to have to deal with that. Hydrogen doesn't function like any other antioxidant. In fact, it's not even really an antioxidant, because from a terminology perspective, what's an antioxidant, right? What's the book say? An electron donor, correct?
Yeah.
But that's not what hydrogen did. Did I say anything about electron donation? No.
Isn't that how it works?
No, of course not. I didn't say anything. I said H2 is
No, but I
neutral.
thought you were just simplifying it.
No, I don't simplify things. I give it to you straight.
There was a heap of studies, one came out about a year ago on N-acetylcysteine, and the theory of so it showed that by taking a lot of N-acetylcysteine, which is a potent antioxidant, it was greatly advantaging the cancer.
Of course.
And the conclusion of the authors was that
Of course.
you need oxidative stress to summon the immune cavalry, and
Correct.
if you turn it off, you
Correct.
fail to bring the immune, so you actually favor the cancer by turning off oxidative stress. So
There's many studies.
I read a
that-
book this size on redox chemistry of cancer, and nobody knows. It's just.
I agree. I agree. And in fact, people that take too many antioxidants will get cancer.
There's loads of studies on that.
Yes. And just last night I talked about that in a lecture last night, which was, as I said earlier when we talked, be careful of antioxidants. You don't really need them if your body is functioning. And there has been 3 studies that I'm aware of where they really gave a ton of antioxidants to people and they ended up contracting disease. But let's move on.
I suspect the difference is that the hydrogen, and I'm into this, I own one of these machines.
That's it. Which one?
It's from Eagle Research. You know,
From who?
George Wiseman, Eagle Research.
No, I don't know who that is.
Top of American-Canadian board or something. But it seems to me that if you take a lot of antioxidants...
You don't want one of these machines.
No, I don't, that's my fear. But it seems to me that if you take a lot of antioxidants, you force the chemistry in a given direction, whereas if you put in H2 molecules, I suspect that the body will take up the amount it needs and not...
No, that's
so
wrong.
it
That's
may-
wrong. No.
Doesn't work.
But you have to understand what I said. Hydrogen does not function like an but by what an antioxidant that you understand functions. It's completely different process it comes through. So you cannot compare hydrogen to any other antioxidant that is used in any way, because in those cases, yes, you could have a damaging effect, which is why I'm going to go on and you're going to learn that this was an amazing study done by the chemotherapy manufacturer. So going back to what I said, because everyone's confused. So hydrogen is an antioxidant, but what did I say? You're only reacting with what? Cytotoxic oxygen radicals that are creating oxidative stress that is damaging cell function on a mitochondrial perspective. We're not talking about vitamin C or glutathione or any of these other things that people talk about that I think you should never take unless it's absolutely necessary. But that's another story, another conversation. Here in this study, let's focus on what we're talking about here. that it enhanced cell apoptosis. And I will tell you it's through signal modulation, just like the other things are happening. And there are NRF2 pathways. There are a number of pathways that are affected that hydrogen travels along, which are the antioxidant pathways in the body, but that's what's happening. But let's understand, and on the next page you'll understand when I do the little cliff notes on the study. At the end of this study, high content hydrogen water exhibited stronger antioxidative and anti-cancer like activity than did natural hydrogen water, because you know you can get natural hydrogen water on the earth. In conclusion, high content hydrogen water can inhibit colon cancer. That's very strong language in a study, particularly in combination with 5-fluorosil. Now, 5-fluorosil, or 5-FU as they call it in the medical industry, I just had to say that. So, 5-fluorosil, they're saying in combination. Why? Because that was the only combination that got 100% cancer cell death.
And also because you said the drug company funded, so they only ever fund adjuvant stuff.
Well, no, not in this study. And this is the only funded study in all the 700. And they funded it because they truly wanted to understand how to improve their medication. Because they know they're not getting 100% cancer cell death with 5-fluorosil. And I think most of the chemotherapy companies understand that there are tremendous damaging effects of their products. And it's not like we're just going, okay, I'm dumb and we're not going to pay attention. There's more and more and more negative press coming out on the damaging effects of chemotherapy, are there not?
For sure.
And you have far more people saying, screw that, I'm not doing that. I like my hair and I don't want to be bald, so I'm going to go this way. So they're saying, shoot, how do we make our product more effective and not have the damaging effects? Because that will stabilize our market share.
Yeah.
That's what they're looking at. And I'll tell you, whether, organic food or not, I'm telling you, if people stop buying McDonald's food unless it was organic, do you know how quickly they would have organic food in that?
Yeah.
Listen, companies need profits. If we vote with our dollars, they do what we tell them to do. It's just we're sheeple and we do what the masses are doing. And if we would vote more with our dollars, and we force them to do what they do. The reality is, if we really woke up and understood that, we could command more things. But this is the reality. Hydrogen is a potent antioxidant. Hydrogen water administration improved the survival of mice. Okay? Furthermore, hydrogen water enhanced cell apoptosis. Critical. Those are very, very important topics, right? Apoptosis is awesome, so that the cells will destroy themselves. Again, very natural. We're not killing things, we're having them destroy self. This is the important part that came out. High content hydrogen water exhibited stronger anti-cancer activity, and you got 100% cancer cell death with the combination. Now, you didn't get 100% cell death with hydrogen by itself. You didn't get 100% cell death with 5-fluorosil by itself. It was only when they were combined together that you got 100%. So it's interesting. Now, this is a very long study, and deeper in the study, they also talked about the fact that the typical chemotherapy negatives, which are significant, were greatly lessened when they were using hydrogen therapy. Now, this is nothing new. Going back 10 years ago, I remember seeing in the United States where I live, major television networks talking about the fact that people were using waters to help during cancer treatments, and certain doctors were giving them these things so they could keep their hair and have less of a oxidation effect of chemotherapy. So, and the reality is it does not. And the other thing that this study pointed out, which was beautiful, was that hydrogen had no contraindication, no counter effect on the chemotherapy drug. So that's why I share this, to poke a little bit of fun at a chemotherapy drug, because I'm not a fan. But also to say, amazingly, even the chemotherapy drug companies are looking at hydrogen. That's what I want you to understand. That's why it's an excellent study to show you, because they wouldn't do it if they didn't have to.
Yeah.
The fact that they are looking at hydrogen water, and I can tell you, as a leading company in hydrogen therapy, I get those calls from drug companies going, can you teach us how to stabilize hydrogen in an IV? Yeah, I can teach you how to do that. Why would I do that? Because at least I know that person is going to have a much better experience. But I've told him it's very difficult. It's extremely difficult to stabilize hydrogen in an IV therapy drug. But I can tell you, you're going to have to change your substrate of your IV bag. And that's the main things you're going to do. So this is why I share this. It was a very long slide now, but this is why I share this, is to understand that without the chemotherapy drug, was hydrogen beneficial? Of course. It said it what? Anti-cancer, and what? It inhibits colon cancer. So that's a beautiful takeaway, that not only does it inhibit, but if you do have cancer and you're like, I just philosophically can't do chemotherapy or whatever, but you're smart, then you can use hydrogen water for that. So, okay? Something's happening. There we go. I woke up. So this is my favorite study. Something, yeah. Okay. So I told you I spent many years in the world of diabetes mellitus, right? So this is my favorite study, and this is one of the older ones, 2008. It's a nice double-blind placebo-controlled study, 30 individuals, where they did 900 milliliters a day. It wasn't even a lot of water. It's 900 milliliters of water, and the placebo group got 900 milliliters of placebo water. And what we ended up with was what? 80% of the IGT individuals were normalized in the oral glucose tolerance test. And the reason I like this study is it's a human study. We have 45 of the 700 studies are human, so we have quite a few. But what I like about this, and I'm going to go to the next slide so you can see it, during the study, LDL was reduced. Small dense LDL, urinary isoproteins by 6.6, serum concentration of oxidized LDL, free fatty acids, adiponectin, superoxide dismutase, all these things were occurring. And those are what you would call bonuses in a study, because we were looking for lipid and glucose metabolism changes. So my question is, why do you think LDL was changed?
Less oxidation in the body.
Right. But why specifically? Good answer. Correct.
Did you say?
Less oxidation in the body.
Yeah.
LDL fights inflammation.
Correct. So LDL is what? If I was to hit this wall and put a hole in it, I have to patch that with something, right? So what is LDL in the vessels? Is that not the patch? Right.
Yeah.
So effectively, when you start having weak systems, the body's going to just, it's going to send LDL to well, and eventually, if you don't take away the source problem, you just, you're all LDL, right?
There going, come and save us.
Right. So what we're really seeing, to your point, is what? We're reducing the issues.
It doesn't need it anymore.
Right. So is that because we put a statin drug in there
No.
to force the LDL to go away when the veins are still weak and have a rupture? No. We bolstered the entire system, took away the source problem, and the body says, great, I don't need that anymore.
In this country, we're not even looking, breaking down LDL yet. We don't have any MRs, we don't have anything like that. We're still,
We're the statin kings, right?
yeah.
So,
What's the mechanism of the glucose tolerance? That's much more interesting.
What?
The glucose tolerance improvement, which is fascinating. What's the mechanism there?
well, there's a number. You got leptin. You got a number of master hormones that are affected. You have ghrelin secretions. You have a lot of stuff going on when hydrogen goes in. Oh, I forgot to say this. I'm so horrible of a teacher. When you have the sign-up sheet that's going around, did a sign-up sheet come around? Not yet. Okay, it's coming right now.
Sign up.
Or you can tell me what studies you want me to send you. If you have certain pathologies,
Yeah.
I'll send you the studies. And for you, write the diabetes study, and I'll send you the entire full study. You can read to your heart's content and keep on reading it. Any of these studies, and about 250 more I have that cover everything from hearing loss in guinea pigs to sexual drive in mice to we got it all, baby. Hydrogen is the way of the future.
Can I just bore you for a week? I'm doing my assignment on diabetes.
I'll be here till the 27th with Veronica. You got to clear it through her. She's
in charge.
She's the one. Yeah, she's amazing. God has blessed me with her. She's amazing. So, and she lives in Edinburgh, Scotland. I don't know if we said that, but she's closer to than I am when I'm in Florida, in Orlando. But if you come to Mickey Mouse, think of me, because you'll be within a half an hour when you're there at the park. So, I won't be there with you, but in spirit, I will be happy to say hello. So, I'll be happy to send any studies, is the point. So you can read and really understand deeply, because I love doing that stuff. But it takes a while to go through 35, 40 pages of a study and to truly understand every aspect of a study and which pathways. It's really amazing. But what you'll have happen, as has for me, it becomes very similar very quickly, because we know oxidative stress is the source for these 170 human diseases, which is why hydrogen helps with them. So you start to see similarities and pathways that are being followed and how things are being done, because many disease models are extremely similar. It's just different parts of the body that are having problems. Yeah. All right. So I told you how we're going to help rebuild gut. So it's critical that we rebuild gut, and after we have a single issue or round of antibiotics, how long does it typically take to rebuild the gut to what it was before that very, very first antibiotic? Anyone know?
Ages, even like one set is something like a few months, 3 months or something, or more. Yeah.
I've seen studies on all sides. I've seen studies with the newer PCR stuff. They catch stuff years after antibiotics. But there's been other studies showing, a British one going back a few years, that even with massive derangement, the strongest antibiotic, vancomycin, metronidazole, everyone was back to their own version of normal in under 21 days.
I don't believe that.
And that was before PCR, so I'm not so sure.
I think they're full of crap, that one. But
Yeah, too sure about
I'm just saying that. It's about 2 years.
Yeah.
It could be easily 2 years to 4 years. That's the reality. Anyone that says 21 days is off
If you
their
ever
rocker.
do get back there.
It's off. They're off their rocker in 21 days.
It was like 1990.
They're either doing some serious fecal implantation or something's going on, because, which I doubt they're doing, because it's sort of illegal in many places. But I would say it's years. And I would say to you that most people, once they get an antibiotic, they're wiped out for a long time. They have no clue that they're wiped out.
No.
They don't know what to do about it. And all of a sudden, they just know life is hell. And I have all these things going on that I didn't used to have, and I don't know what to do about it. No one mentions a probiotic even, which most probiotics are a waste of money. And they don't function worth a darn, especially if you're dehydrated, which is 50% of the population. But the reality is, if we were to seriously understand by significant research, understanding the mechanisms, understanding how to build the epithelial wall, and to get the microbiome back to where those bacteria are welcomed again, and then they will come very, very quickly. Even if we understood all that, it's a long time. And my foundational question is, in the amount of time it takes, what's the chance, if we've wiped out the immune system, what's the chance of them getting sick again and needing another antibiotic?
That's what happens. Yeah. In reality.
And you just start a cycle of sickness that gets worse and worse and worse. And your body's holding on when you're young, right? Your body's holding on as much as it can. But eventually, it's going to fail. And that's when all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have this problem and that problem. And it started out as food allergies, but now it's this and that and this and that. So here's the part that I want to understand. And here, just for you, we got a Moscow State University, so we didn't get something from Asia. Just to even it up a little bit in the world. 96 to 99% of the bacteria should be friendly, or what's called residential microflora or anaerobes. The problem is we flip that many times, and then we start feeding those so they grow, because why? Our food desires change once we wipe out our gut bacteria, because the gut bacteria that goes back into the destroyed area has different desires than friendly bacteria. And so all of a sudden, food cravings for sugar, carbs, things that are broken down much faster start to be what we want. And you can almost argue that more of your personality is based on the bacteria in your body than even you understand. Because a lot of our cravings, our anxiety, depressions, a lot of these emotional issues that people suffer is simply because we destroyed their gut. And you restore their gut and you get a new person back again. It's really a beautiful short-term memory. A lot of things start to come back. So let's talk about this. And this says nothing about hydrogen. What we're talking about here is, because it's a little bit of an older study, but what we're talking about here is the water properties themselves are favorable for a milieu to be rebuilt. Now, I can tell you that hydrogen also has a role, but the study isn't out yet. But it's coming. This one simply talks about anaerobic microflora and the properties of the water that could carry into the gut, which this water has, is in favor of the hypothesis the primary target for electrolyzed water is residential microflora. Now, in 1965 in Japan, what did they prove after 15 years of human trial? That they stopped what? Improper fermentation in the gut. So everything has been from 1965 on talking about the gut, And so this is a good study. Anyone wanting it, happy to send it, but it's a good study. Okay? This is just, again, the notes. Now, just because I'm not showing a study on certain pathology, don't think you can't write that down. Because I have a lot of pathology and a lot of studies in this little laptop right here. They're all in there. There's 1 terabyte that I can store in this little thing. That's my whole entire computer right there.
Do you have something on just the basic understanding of oxidative stress?
Oh yeah, that's easy.
Not really.
No, it's easy for me to get that. Yes, I
Yeah.
have that in multiple
Yeah.
forms. Yes.
Yeah, I'd really like to understand it well.
Okay. That's. I mean, I
Because I
say
haven't read a bit about it, but I'm like,
it's easy, but
still don't. Yeah. for
it's
you,
like anything
yeah.
else. You can get into a very complex web of.
Yeah,
how
that's what I
oxidative
found. I was like,
stress-
oh, that's too much for me right now.
Well, that's what's going to happen quick. Or you can we can keep it simple and.
Yeah.
Have you, so just a slight different thing.
Sure.
You know, people, some people may know about this hydrogen thing, and so it came from Russia, I think, and there's a book by one guy, and some people are just fascinated, and some people are using the hydrogen peroxide in the water. Is that something
that's
similar to that?
no. I'm not a fan of. So I'll just give you a 30-second thing on that, and it's worth what you're paying for it. So I am not a fan of providing oxidation to elicit a response for healing. But that's ozone, it's peroxide, it's oxygen therapy. Any of these are all oxidative treatments. So you are forcing the body to undergo oxidation and oxidative stress so that you trigger the body's opposite reaction to opposition or oxidation. So you're eliciting what they call signal modulation, but it's you putting oxidation into the body, forcing it to respond to that. And through the pathways that are responded, you can heal certain things.
And that's not what this does.
No, you're removing the oxidative stress and allowing the body to fix. So, for instance, in a cell, you remove oxidative stress, it can produce glutathione in that particular cell, clean itself up, and then move on. Like, I am absolutely not a fan of glutathione systemically. I think it's not good for you. But when the body produces glutathione, when you've removed an oxidative burden, that's a very good thing, but it's specific to that cell that needs it. It's not systemic.
Okay.
So I'm not saying that these therapies don't work. It's just not the way I like to do medicine. Just like, and I have all these dumb stories, but you're gonna have to deal with it while I'm here, because that's the way I explain things. It's just like my beautiful son. Let's say he was going to school and someone was picking on him, and he didn't want to fight. Maybe he's a more peaceful person. Maybe he doesn't want to fight somebody. He wants to just be able to exist in life without fighting. You know, there's nothing wrong with this, right? But I decide as a dad, I got a weak son.
Yeah.
I need to beat the crap out of him every day so he gets stronger. It might work. Maybe it would. Maybe after the 10th time I've had to myself bully him and beat him down that he, whoa, Dad, no. Right? But is that the best way? No.
Remove the bully.
Well, you could remove the source, or you can simply talk to him and say, look, here's the deal. Let's have a conversation. Let's build you up so that you feel a little more empowered. Yeah, and whatever. There's different ways to affect problems. And that's the point I'm making is you have some therapies that come at it through a back door. You have other therapies that are going through the front door. You have other therapies that provide oxidative stress. My only concern is if the individual is already in trouble, some people can't handle more oxidative stress. So you have to know your client or your patient depending on your situation.
But I guess exercise as an example is an oxidative stress on the body.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and too much of that could be a serious problem for people.
Mhm.
Yeah. But for someone who's 20 and is still immortal, run around the block. There's no problem. You know, and I think that we've got to take off blinders and we've got to take off the robot mentality, right? Like, oh, you have this, then this. And you have this, oh, then you do this. And that's not medicine. That shouldn't be medicine. We should look at the entire individual, emotionally, right? Functionally, spiritually. You could look at the whole person and what do we need for them.
Aren't the whole sort of functional medicine movement going sort of down that whole glutathione and stuff route in America? It seems to be.
Yeah.
It's
Glutathione
always
kind of
coming.
ran its cycle, and there's still companies selling it, but it's not as big
Yeah.
as it used to be because, I don't know. You know, here's the deal. People come up with all kinds of crazy crap all the time. It's just what it is because people got to sell
it's just
something,
keeps
right? People
moving,
got to sell something, so they're going to come up with some new thing, and sometimes they run their cycle, and sometimes they stay for a long time. It
Yeah.
depends on the effectiveness and the reality of something. And there's a book out there called The Wisdom of Crowds. I don't know if any of you have read it, but it's an amazing book called The Wisdom of Crowds. It's a fun Friday night book because it simply talks about the fact that as a group of people, we always have wisdom and we know what's going on regardless of situations. It's a great, great book. And it gives some wonderful examples. And we're not talking, we're talking about crowds. Crowds could be a room of 100, or it could be 1 million people in a country, or 2 million people that have a certain buying pattern on stocks based on a company having an issue, and their habits. No one tipped anybody off, but just intuitively something appeared, and that's what it's talking about, the wisdom of crowds and how people function and make decisions and how much intelligence there is in the wisdom of crowds collectively. It's a really cool book. So anyway, let's move on. Here's a good one because you talked about exercise. I just put it in there. See how fast I put that in there? It wasn't there. It wasn't there. So this is for you, brother. So this is a good study. This was soccer players. 20 of them, I believe. No, 10. 10 soccer players. 20 years old.
Japanese soccer.
I'm sorry?
Japanese soccer players.
It doesn't matter, doesn't it?
I'm just saying. I didn't know
So-
they played soccer over there.
Huh?
I didn't think they did soccer over there. So don't worry.
It's all a lie. This whole study is made up. I'm kidding. I wrote this yesterday. No, I'm kidding. So here's the deal. These soccer players, they drank hydrogen-enriched water 30 minutes prior to exercise or playing. Okay? And effectively, they did a kinetic chain measurement of extension, flexion, to understand range of motion and how long it took for them not to have full range of motion anymore. In other words, muscle decline, right? And they tested it through a number of different tests and what have you. But the thing that was beautiful is peak torque of the placebo water significantly decreased our maximal isokinetic knee extension, suggesting muscle fatigue. But peak torque of hydrogen water didn't decrease at early phase. There was no significant change in blood oxidative injury markers and or creatine kinase after exercise. So at the end of the day, it was lactate that they weren't seeing coming in the muscle. So hydrogen mitigated lactate buildup in the muscle, which obviously would explain why you would not have muscle decline. Okay? So I've known this for years because we've had football players, American football players, basketball players, athletes in general, runners, what we call ultra runners that do 120-mile races, would use our water, my particular machine, to help them in their performance. So, and we didn't know why it was working. We just knew it was. We just knew that people go to the gym and they would say, I can work out for 5 hours and I'm just bored and I go home. It's not because I'm worn out. I'm just ready to go home. And other people would say, I could practice basketball for 5 hours straight. It's just weird. I don't know. So we had those experiences, but we didn't really understand why until this study came out, and understanding exactly why those athletes were experiencing wonderful benefits. We've seen people that work out, so any of you guys that are wanting to show off to the girls, take some hydrogen before you go in the gym, and you could do about twice the weight when you start bench pressing. It's about double the weight that the body can do. So it's pretty cool, you know, if you're going to do that. So, any questions? Here's kind of your synopsis as well.
If you're saying that it works, you started to say it worked more energetically, a bit like homeopathy?
No. Oh, I was talking about the fact it's signal modulation.
Okay, so
if you understand
can you explain a bit more
homeopathy,
of that? You were saying it can't work on the basis of pH. It doesn't work on the basis of
right,
joining with every single molecule because there's just far too many molecules. So how does it work then?
it programs things to function.
Which is like energetic.
That's right.
Yeah. Now that's very difficult to prove.
No, it's not. We just did.
Well, homeopathy is impossible.
We're not proving that. No, it's not.
No, you're saying it worked well.
Homeopathy has been proven for how many years?
No, not
Oh, yeah.
scientifically.
Oh, yes, it has. What are you proving with homeopathy?
Well, people, swear that it works, but they can't actually prove it scientifically.
Well, that's
And I'm not saying you have to prove
it's
it
been proven for years. Now they're wanting to disprove it. It's been proven for years. I mean, it's medicine. They're just wanting to destroy it because it works too well. That's why there's an attack right now on homeopathy, because it works too well. But
No, I didn't get that impression from studying here anyway.
uh,
Even from the people that teach us say it's not proven scientifically. That's not important. We don't think that's important, right? But some people think scientific proof is important.
I think it's important. If some things you can't prove, like your level of love for another person, maybe. But the reality is that you can prove homeopathy. Because homeopathy is frequency. You're matching frequency, right? Just like you can prove a Wi-Fi signal and you can prove homeopathy. You have a wave going this way and you provide something that goes the wave opposite. So you neutralize that. That's what homeopathy is doing. It's like for like.
Yeah,
right?
I know what the theory of it is.
That's
but I
very
don't
easy
think
to
you could
prove,
prove
but-
it scientifically.
But we can talk about it later, because this is not what
Okay.
I'm talking about.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, in a similar way, signal modulation, which is hydrogen giving direction to biomolecules and other things in the body, in a way is similar to how homeopathy works, which is also modulation through frequency and other things. So the way homeopathy was originally invented was you take a like plant for a like condition and they resonate at a interestingly similar frequency, and you do that. But that took someone who was intuitive, right? Some people wouldn't know energy if it slapped them upside the head.
Intuitive, not scientific.
Right, but just because people are not intuitive doesn't mean it doesn't work.
I agree with you
Yeah.
completely. Yeah.
So you can prove it, and it has been proven. But that's another story.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not teaching you
Sorry, I
homeopathy.
didn't want to be.
No,
yeah,
I love
yeah.
homeopathy,
Yeah.
but I don't teach homeopathy.
Mm.
I understand homeopathy, but I don't teach. So this is the study which shows, again, very easy to study, as I'm showing you 700 studies. It's very easy to understand how hydrogen functions. Now, we have 700 studies, again, 45 human, beneficial in 170 human disease, anti-aging, glucose uptake, insulin signaling, SIRT1, telomeres, which I'm sure you all heard of telomere length.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful study. If you want that one, right, add it to the list. I can send it to you. So again, it stimulates anaerobic microflora to report gut issues, supports immune system boost, obvious, supports growth of good bacteria, and the thing I haven't talked about yet is ghrelin secretions. So gastric ghrelin. You have ghrelin and leptin, your two master hormones, with hunger hormone, right? Telling you to stop. Yeah, telling you to stop. So both of those hormones actually work together for fat storing, for energy, for insulin mitigation, a lot of different things that are going on. So the hydrogen stimulates ghrelin secretion when it gets in the stomach. Why do we want that? I kind of gave it away right in the next line, but it's cognitive increase, brain function. We're increasing brain function within minutes of having the water. Okay? So Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, ADHD, you know, all these kind of things. Okay? So better brain, cardiovascular health, decrease of colon, breast cancer, gastrointestinal health, all these wonderful things. Okay? Now, what's the most important take home? This is all what your body was supposed to be doing to begin with. If we'd have left the gut alone, right? But we don't. We put pesticides, we put metals, we put all kinds of things into the body. Of course, antibiotics are a very, very disastrous situation. And we stop that process that does all of these things that I shared with you, the body was designed to do. Okay? So, how do you get hydrogen in your life? Hopefully that is the question you have in your mind. If it does all these things, and it can help you, and it can help your clients, and it can help family members, it can help all these people you've been thinking about all night that may have these issues. The big question is, what are the methods of administration? Obviously, produced in the gut. Right? That's what we would hope if we could have everybody that didn't have gut damage. But the bottom line is most people have some level or another of gut damage, and it is what it is. You know, you can look at inflammation, you can look at food allergies, you can look at a lot of things, and many times it's gut related. So you have produced in the gut, inhalation, or dissolved in water. Inhalation being a cannula on your face, and breathing. Okay? Dissolved in water is here, the machine I developed, machines that do that. You also have electrolysis or reactive magnesium. So we have tablets and drops, and you'll see them in a second, where it's magnesium in a reactive state that will react with water and create hydrogen. Okay, you're basically breaking up H2O into H2 and O gas, and that's what we're doing in the machine, and that's what we're doing there. So what is the best method of administration? Dissolved in water. Okay? The reason being is why. Why is it better?
Because it quickly goes into all
It
parts
goes
of
into
you.
your gut.
So it's more easily.
Yes, gut. So because it goes in the gut, we can change the microbiome. And what did it pass through? Stomach to stimulate what? Ghrelin secretions.
Yeah.
So we get brain and cognitive change because it went through the stomach first. If we breathe that, you're not passing the stomach, and so you're not having cognitive increase in the same. You'll get a fast blood level of hydrogen, but you don't get the gut and you don't get the brain, and so it's just a partial. You get lungs and blood, primarily. And you have to sit there for 45 minutes to an hour breathing. It's difficult for some people to do that. Here with water, you could fill up a 20-ounce bottle, and on your way you go. And you have your therapy while you're driving, while you're walking around, while you're doing whatever, right? So it's far, far better. So that's what we're talking about here. So let's look a little bit about electrolysis. Now, this electrolysis is not what's happening in this machine, but this is to explain to you how basic electrolysis, where you're separating water streams, happen. Here you have a diaphragm, and you have what's called an anode and a cathode. On this side of the water, as you separate them, you end up with hydrogen ions, which is why in this particular case, this water would be lower in pH because of these. And because of these, this water would be higher pH. No benefit for that at all. There's not a single medical benefit to having the pH change in the water because there's no buffering capacity. It's only changed pH is because you've moved hydrogens around. You have a hydroxide and a hydrogen ion, and so they're increasing and decreasing pH. But there's no buffering to the body. The stomach acid will change that pH very rapidly. But what we're looking for in this process is the H2 molecule, and then you've got the oxygen over here where you're not drinking the water. Okay. Now the big weakness in electrolysis was the fact that all your minerals here are positively charged and they want to attract to a cathode. And if calcium and these minerals, potassium, magnesium, right, iron, get on this electrode, you can no longer dissolve hydrogen because you'll have a little layer of minerals on here, and so all the hydrogen bubbles will coalesce and be bigger. If we keep the electrode completely clean, then we have little nanobubbles of hydrogen, and they can be dissolved because they're tiny. The larger the bubbles, the more difficult it is to dissolve that gas because you don't have enough contact time, surface area, and you don't have the ability. So what we do in one of our machines that does make different pH water, so you have cleaning and disinfecting water, we reverse these polarities every single time. And the patents from 2005 and 2007, where we reverse the polarity, so it's impossible to have mineral buildup. So again, not in this machine, because this machine doesn't affect pH at all, it just dissolves hydrogen. Here, you can affect pH change for cleaning.
So we use any water in your machines? It doesn't matter.
In this process, you would not be able to use RO and distilled. You would have to have minerals in the source water to accomplish this. In this machine, you can use distilled RO, well, tap, it doesn't matter.
Well, okay, because I'm just thinking, say, the machine that I have, you must use distilled water or you'll bung up your electrodes.
No.
For example.
I don't know if that's true or not. I would have to look at the thing, and I can tell you if it's true or not. But
No, but are you saying that the minerals aren't fundamental to the electrolysis? Sure.
well, absolutely, they are in this electrolysis because this diaphragm is what's called a standard diaphragm. You need electrolysis. You need conductivity for this to happen. If you had a proton exchange membrane, which we have here, you would be able to use fluorine and have your own conductivity. That's the only difference, but it's still the same process of electric.
But even if you use distilled water, it will just go into H and OH, isn't it? The fundamental?
No, not without having conductivity, but let's talk about that after, because I want to finish this.
Okay, so
And we can go in, no, it's okay, I love the conversation. So, again, here's the tablets and the drops. These use magnesium in an elemental state, a reactive state, so when you put them in water, they'll make hydrogen. This is good for travel and skeptical clients that are like, let me try before I spend money on a machine.
Just in relation
And
to
does it work exactly like the machine? Is the effect the same?
No, it is not exactly the same, but you have
But you
hydrogen.
end up with hydrogen.
Yes,
You get that?
yes.
just in relation to the tablets, and I'm not sure about the other products, but I've heard that if you put it in a plastic container, that the hydrogen is destroyed pretty much immediately.
No, that's false information. Not at all. I don't know who's telling you that, but I wouldn't trust anything else they said about hydrogen.
Tyler LeBron.
Yeah, I know Tyler. He lived in my house for a while. He's never said that. It's not true. He will never say that because it's completely false information. Maybe you misunderstood what he's saying. That hydrogen, you'll lose 0.1 parts per million per day, but that's all you're going to lose. If you use these tablets, you'll have 13 to 15 days of hydrogen minimum. You could have far more than that. Same as here and here, and he knows that. Tyler and I are very close friends. Like I said, him and I traveled for 4 weeks at that hydrogen symposium. I paid for him to go, so I know him extremely well, and his wife and children. They lived in my house for a while. So understand that that's false information. You have 5 hours. If you were to put hydrogen water out of here into a glass, you'd have 5 hours before you hit half-life in an open container. If you close a container with no airspace at the top, that there's nowhere for the hydrogen to go, and you'll lose 0.1 parts per million per day, but that's about it. So if you started with 1 part per million, which you get much more than that out of this, but if you started 1 part per million, you have 10 days of hydrogen. You have 5 days of therapeutic hydrogen, because anything over 0.5 parts per million is therapeutic. But Tyler's brilliant. Tyler's amazing. And again, I know him very well. We've lectured together many times. Here is filtration that's in the machines. These are the things, because it's critical that you remove things that are harmful out of water. And I don't think people understand how many harmful things are in water.
The public water here is fluoridated.
Yes.
Right. Luckily I don't have it in my water in my house, but I do.
So is it better to
Will it
just
remove
distilled?
fluoride?
We have a separate fluoride filter that comes free. When you order a machine, you just specify you want the fluoride filter. It's no charge for the first one. You would need to change that specific fluoride filter every 6 months. But yes, it will remove fluoride. The filter that's in the machine removes these things, but it does not do fluoride. And anyone that tells you that we could make a multimedia filter that's going to remove fluoride would not understand water chemistry, because it's very difficult to remove fluoride. You need an entire filter to do that.
Yeah. Because I had a distilled one, and there was the woman who, and then it bust. So I said to her back, and I went, okay, I'll have a third tap, and I'll have double osmosis. And I wanted to get this. And she said there isn't a machine that does everything at the moment. So you have to have your double osmosis and then put your double osmosis water through one of these. Is that right?
I have no problem with that. Reverse osmosis is a
Yeah.
great filtration mechanism.
Okay. Okay.
Some people it bothers them energetically, but not
Right.
it, but
Oh, yeah.
we,
Oh, too difficult for you.
yeah,
Okay.
we're talking
Yeah.
energy.
All right. That's
So here is the machine that we have just coming out in a few weeks. You can use it above counter or below counter. It doesn't affect pH. You can run distilled, RO, whatever you want into it. It's going to put hydrogen in the water. It's for drinking water only. Again, this is a countertop only machine. This is countertop or under sink with this, okay? So this is one type of water coming out. Drinking water, neutral pH, hydrogen.
So
Filter.
it's a power source and a plug.
Yeah.
Yeah, you connect it to your cold water.
So you'd have 2 taps then, one for your reverse
No.
osmosis
No.
and one for your.
This would be where the RO water and the hydrogen, because you would connect the RO directly to the machine. That would be your source water,
Oh,
the
okay.
RO water. Okay.
Okay.
This machine is the only one in the world that makes all 3 types of this water. The same hydrogen water, neutral pH, and then higher pH water for cleaning dirt, lower pH water for disinfectant. So if you wanted a chemical-free kitchen, not having to use a lot of chemicals and detergents, then this is the machine. And if you want it under sink, there's a digital faucet that goes with that one, and you touch, because there's 9 types of water that will come out of this.
Good call.
So it's a completely different thing. So, you've been educated.
Yeah, I should try it.
What are you going to do? That's the big question, right? Everyone loves the things, and they go out and they, well, what are you going to do about this information? Are you going to educate people? Are you going to help yourself? What are you going to do? So, I will do something, or I will do nothing. That's the 2 choices, right? That's pretty much what it is. So, I hope you're asking, what is the next step for you? If it's doing nothing, you don't have much to do, right? If it's something, then what is that going to be? Will you choose to reverse the damage and educate others today, or wait? And then, from a quote from my mother always used to say, begin, and the rest is easy.
That's true.
And that's the reality. So I hope that you have enjoyed and found beneficial the information. I promise you we just scratched the surface. But the reality is gut damage is where all of this begins for most people. Not every person. You do have some neurologic things that occur through other reasons, but most of everything is done through gut damage. And oxidative stress definitely, which can come from multiple reasons, can absolutely affect the body. By decreasing oxidative stress and inflammation, you will empower the body, and the pathologies will go away. I have watched it myself for many years. This is like an if-then statement. And hydrogen plays a huge role in this. And so I hope that you do something about it. I hope that you teach your clients
Yeah.
and use this as a way to educate them and to create a revenue source. We are not a multi-level marketing company in any way, shape, or form. We're in 15 countries, and we are with practitioners, doctors, medical professionals that market our products. People like Mike Adams, Natural News, they're a personal friend of mine, Dr. McCullough, who has my machine in his house. These types of people are the ones that understand this technology and are promoting it to the world. Doug Kaufman on Know the Cause and all these people were great, brilliant individuals who help to move people. So I hope you've enjoyed it.